Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Altition, Director of Client Partnerships at Pacific Cascade Legal. Today, we have high conflict divorce coach and certified domestic violence advocate Lisa Johnson to talk about fighting back against legal abuse, what to do when your ex is using the court system to harass you. Well, that's a mouthful, but we're going to get to that. Before that, though, Lisa, just can you kind of talk about yourself, how you kind of got to be doing what you're doing?
Sure. Of course, we're going to talk about my favorite topic today. I'm, like you said, I'm Lisa. I'm a high conflict divorce strategist, I like to say. I'm the female half of Been There, Got Out. So I myself never imagined that I ever would get divorced. And it happened after about 20 years with my ex. And I thought it would take a couple of months and amicably, and the divorce took a year and everything took about 10 years. Along the way, I realized what it was that I was dealing with. And my background is as a high school English teacher. And I thought, I wonder if I could use my education degree as well as my education in the trenches to help other people. So one of the things that really got me involved in this was after that first year and spending $100,000, which I'm going to pay back forever. My lawyer said, "You cannot afford me anymore. Your ex is not going to comply with this agreement, and you got to go on your own. So let's set you up for as much success as possible, but you're going to be back in the muck without me." And so he gave me some ideas and then went another 7-ish years and about 100 court appearances. And it was awful and wonderful at the same time because there were a lot of victories and triumphs. And the cherry on top was the case being notable enough to be published in the Connecticut Law Journal. So it's case law for the state, which every lawyer tells me they've never heard of a pro se or self-represented litigant being published. So I'm really proud of that. So using, again, my education degree and all this experience in family court has led me to Been There, Got Out with my partner. And we absolutely love what we do. And all of our clients belong to the My Lawyer Says This Is the Craziest Case They've Ever Had club.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is great stuff to talk about. We do family law and abuse is all not always, but is at times an issue in a lot of family law cases. But there it's sort of the physical abuse, the that other kind of stuff. And also, people do behave very badly.
You're telling me.
And yeah, and those are usually handled on two separate sort of spheres and don't really get kind of like put together as, oh, hold it, this is happening, and it's really also this. So I loved it when you used the term legal abuse. And so maybe we'll just kind of talk about just what do you mean by legal abuse and kind of what is it? What does it do?
Okay. So, like you said, a lot of times people think of abuse, when we talk about domestic violence, most people think of physical, but there's all kinds of hidden abuse, and legal abuse fits into that. And that's when somebody is basically using the legal system to wear another person down and bleed them dry financially. And so it's called legal abuse, but it has other names that are a little more colorful. So one bland one is litigation abuse. Another is paper abuse because there's so much paper involved in these cases that go on for years and cost tons of money. Uh, Another one that I love is judicial terrorism, but my favorite is stalking through the court. Because we always say that once you get out of that day-to-day relationship, your ex is limited to three ways to still get at you: money, kids, and the court. And the
Yep.
court and money go hand in hand, and that's how they keep you still attached, is by being stuck in court together. So it's awful. And we just learn ways to live with it. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a few minutes.
Oh, yeah. Working with your clients and working with people in this situation, I mean, you obviously come to know something about the other person, the one who's kind of doing it. And this is a simple and dumb question, but it's sort of a lead up, why are they doing this? What makes people act this way?
Um, It's really interesting. One of our clients just yesterday happens to be a psychiatrist, and he said he was talking about something he listened to on addiction. And we always think about how people are addicted to all kinds of things. But one thing that all of our clients' exes have in common in terms of what they're addicted to is revenge.
Yeah.
They get pleasure out of punishing you, and they will do anything to get it. And I think that's why people like this do it. So most of our clients' exes have some kind of personality disorder or addiction issue. And so they don't see the world the same way that, let's say, other people do. And when a relationship ends, everybody's angry, but most people, normal people, the anger subsides, they settle down, they figure out how to work together and do what's best for the kids. Our clients' exes don't. The anger stays the same, it never subsides. And so that anger comes from a feeling of abandonment that's usually connected to something in their childhood. And so instead of dealing with those uncomfortable feelings, also fear or failure that the relationship didn't work out, it turns into rage. And then there's something called splitting that goes on where these people generally see the world as very black and white. So it's like you're either with me or against me, and
Yeah.
I'm the victim and you're the villain, and I'm going to do everything to destroy you. I will spend countless amounts of dollars. I will ruin the kids. I don't care, but I just want to prove to the world that I didn't do anything wrong and it's all your fault.
And they get these opportunities, it seems like, out of just the way a divorce process works. I mean, there's service, there's return of service, there's disclosure, there's depositions, there's all these ways that are built into, make it go right, that it sounds like they twist.
You're making me think of something, Steve. When I was with my wonderful lawyer that I spent too much money on because he was my best friend that year, but his paralegal told me, and I'll never forget it. She said, when you get out of the relationship, the power dynamic shifts to 10 times what it was in the marriage. And I thought about how my ex, when we'd argue, he would just stonewall. He would just go silent and refuse to cooperate. And going through the legal system with someone like that, especially with the discovery process, where everyone's supposed to basically financially undress and show what they have so you can figure out how to divide it. And my ex just refused to cooperate. And we see that as a theme with our clients' exes as well. Hidden assets, hidden income. You're chasing after information all the time and burning through money trying to get it. So that power dynamic continues through the
Yeah.
process. And it's also a stage. A lot of these people, appearances matter. And so it's a whole new level of people to manipulate while you're suffering.
Yeah. And the natural reaction, I know, and from attorneys, is, okay, we're gonna be the logical ones here. We're gonna make sure the judge understands through logic what's happening and apply that. But it almost feels like logic doesn't rationally apply in some of these cases, because that's, that doesn't really stop anything.
Thank you for saying that. We always tell people that we kind of fill the gaps between what attorneys are not trained to do and therapists don't quite understand. And we say, you guys, you're trained in logic. So the problem with these cases that lawyers and most of the world approach them from that logical perspective. You think, okay, both parties are going to come to the table and they're going to do what's fair and they're going to do what's best for the kids. But someone like our ex doesn't care about those priorities. They care about themselves and themselves only. So everything has to be approached very, very differently when you're dealing with someone who's irrational, because their judgment is impaired. They're not even thinking in their own best interests. And so things have to be handled very, very delicately. So a lot of times our clients will think, okay, well, I was in this abusive relationship, so I have to get a pit bull attorney to stand up to my ex. That is one of the worst things that you can do with someone who has some kind of mental illness, because to come in with blame and accusations is just going to explode, and explosions cost money. So you instead want to do everything you can, and this is what we try to work with our clients, and I'm sure you do too, to keep them outside of court, to turn the volume down on the conflict. Even if you're dealing with a really difficult ex, there are so many ways you can approach it to sort of use what you know about them from being in the relationship to keep things calm, not to inflame things, and not to hire what's called negative advocates, people who will contribute to the conflict, who'll say,
Yeah.
you deserve this and you need that. It just makes everything worse. And of course, the harm really comes to children who are in the middle of it because the conflict bleeds onto them.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. I like what you're saying about it's, sometimes fighting fire with fire just makes the fire worse.
Because think about an animal. When you attack an animal and they feel cornered, they're going to lash out and attack back.
So if I come in and I say to you, I've got this horrible person and this is what's going on, and it feels like what you're kind of talking about, just dragging the case on. I mean, we've had clients who have had their exes do over and over again. And I should say this can go past just the divorce, co-parenting, where they just,
Always.
yeah, yeah,
The
and
divorce is just the part one. That's what we say. It
yeah.
always goes past the divorce.
So what can people, I mean, first of all, recognize that this is happening, because that sometimes can be the hardest part, and then maybe move on to, you know, getting around it or fixing it, or, what do you do about it?
So for me, my background is also as an English teacher and as a writer. And I feel like the best way to start addressing this power imbalance is through something we call strategic communication. And when I was teaching high school, one of my favorite things was to teach persuasive writing and anticipating the argument from the other side and using a concession, like embedding that argument into what I was saying. So a lot in strategic communication involves really understanding your ex's perspective and using it against them. So we actually just came out with a course recently. It's called How to Communicate with Your Ex Without Destroying Your Case or Losing Your Mind. And because we know that this is the number one thing that triggers everyone is getting messages from their ex, we're like, let's figure out a way to use this as documentation, but also to start turning the power dynamic around in the relationship. So when we do strategic communication with our clients, we teach them that this is a system where you are communicating, you're writing to your ex, but you are really writing for an invisible audience, a judge, a custody evaluator, mediator, child's therapist, guardian ad litem, minors counsel, whatever. And so your goal is you want to present yourself as the most reasonable, best co-parent ever. And at the same time, you're documenting the other side's patterns of behavior, not a one-time crazy incident, patterns of behavior over time and the impact it has on your child specifically and on your relationship with your child, because we know the other side is going to try to start turning your kids against you because that's part of what they do as well. And so in the process, you're basically building targeted documentation for your case. You're turning hearsay into evidence. You were making sure that you're aligning with one of those best interest factors that most courts consider, which is the level of cooperation between the parties, because we're always going to make sure you look like you're doing everything you can to work with this person. And like I said, it starts turning the power dynamic around, and it also protects you from false claims of parental alienation, because often when the other side doesn't get their way, they start saying that you're the one who's turning the kids against them because they don't take accountability for their own behavior. So we always want to make sure our clients never, even unconsciously, might be doing things that they think are fine that in court could look bad. So for example, when a child is sick, a lot of people think, all right, my kid is sick, I'm just going to keep them with me. And then my ex still wants to see the kid, but my kid is in bed and I don't want to let them go. We tell them it's somebody else's access time. If they insist and they can physically get out of bed, you need to allow your ex to take care of your child because the court wants to see that both parents have the opportunity to be responsible. So you can't unilaterally decide that you're going to break that parenting plan, that custody access time, because you think that's right, because that could be spun against you. So people often aren't exactly aware of what that means. And so again, we like to really make things clear about what's expected and why, because we don't want our clients to get in trouble.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, and that's sort of the our again number one thing is don't react by saying, well, I'll do that if they're gonna if they if, you know a thing always is, well, my spouse did this, so I'm gonna do that. And it just makes it worse. It
Yeah.
just makes it worse.
And it seems like a double standard sometimes because I know, especially when I was going through my own divorce, my ex, like I said, refused to comply with the discovery process. And I kept getting hammered with all these questions. I said to my attorney, why do I have to spend all this time and money? I'm doing everything perfectly and he's not cooperating and nobody's doing anything about it. And my lawyer taught me the term clean hands. He said, we want you to have clean hands because if you do one thing wrong, they're going to spin it. And we don't want any distractions.
Yeah. And there is a sort of a little bit of a shining hope at the end, because if a judge finds, and we've seen this so many times, if a judge finds one of the parties not being truthful in anything, it's very common that everything that person says now, they're going to have a little bit of skins and not necessarily just believe them. So I mean, and the worst thing that happens is when both start doing it, then the judge sort of goes, I don't know if I believe any of you.
Right? Yeah,
So
your credibility is everything.
yes, yep, it's exactly right. How well, how I mean, that's like, the actions, but it's got to be tough for people to even get to that point mentally and emotionally, because they can just break down on these high stress, terrible divorces where the other side is just beating them into a pulp. I mean, how do you help keep them kind of mentally or emotionally going forward?
So we have a little hashtag that we actually use in our monthly newsletter. It's called From Puddle to Ninja. So when you say they're all broken down, that's what we call, like, someone arrives to us. Most people arrive to us in that puddle state where they're just a mess. And we work with most of our clients are very well educated, highly successful in other areas of their life, which makes it even harder for them because there's this additional level of shame. Like, people look to them to be a role model and they don't want to talk about what's happening because there's a lot of judgment, like, oh, I never thought someone like you would fall into something like this. And so they feel really alone. So a couple things we do for our clients besides just the educational stuff are we have a weekly legal abuse support group on Sunday, and we do a very unusual thing in the domestic violence space of blending our male and female clients together because we firmly believe that abuse is a human issue. And being in a group of people, it's not just divorce, because Chris and I exclusively deal with high conflict. So we always say we're very comfortable with chaos. So the stories in that group, everybody gets it. Like, you never need to say, I know this sounds crazy. Everyone's like, oh yeah. So in the group, having that power of community and validation, and being around people that are excellent at research, who bring so much to the group in terms of resources, and being around others who are dealing with the same crazy behavior, it's very validating and it's very comforting. So a lot of times our clients who don't even have anything going on in court, they'll just keep coming for years because it makes them feel better and they
Yeah.
make friends, and this is something that they can't talk to other people about. And because we meet only virtually, our clients are all over the world. And so they can connect this way because most of them don't know anyone who's going through something like this. So that's really helpful. And then the other thing that we do is something called free check-ins as part of a membership program, where we'll say, when you've got a question about something, and no offense, Steve, but we'll say, don't waste $95 asking your lawyer something that's probably not legal, because our clients are not, they're dealing with most of that emotional stuff and they turn to their lawyer for everything. But a lot of the times it's just to clarify something or it's to vent about something that happened with their ex. So we'll say,
Yep.
just send us off an email. Usually, if it takes just a few minutes or less, we'll write back to you, we'll calm you down and talk you off the ledge. You don't need to book a whole session and sort of get you through. And if it's a legal issue, we'll say, you need to put this on the list to talk to your lawyer. And so having people in the background is really, really helpful for getting them stronger. So that, along with strategic communication, we'll say, so we put them as part of the free check-ins, we put them on what's called the permission slip plan. We say, once we teach you how to do strategic communication or you take the course, you can send us drafts of what you think you want to say to your ex, and we will proofread and edit them for you because we want to make sure you have those clean hands. But also, we know how scared you are of not doing something right and messing up. So we will make sure that we do it. You don't have that burden. And in the process, you learn how to do it yourself, and it starts making you stronger. And so that those two things, having the free check-ins and the weekly support group, and then being able to use the sessions as needed, that really starts to change things. So I love watching the visible transformation in people, even on a camera. In the beginning, people are usually talking really, really quickly, looking all over the place, holding their breath, like really, really freaking out, already thinking that they're going to lose, saying they want to walk away from their lives because they can't deal with this. And then just even over a little bit of time, especially through the strategic communication, they start calming down, their faces change. And we always make sure to note that to them and say, look at the progress you're making. Remember when you were completely freaked out? And that makes them feel good. I think, oh, and we have, I don't have one with me, but we have this little, those things outside used cars places. It's like a balloon person
Oh
that
yeah,
gets, yeah. So that's our symbol of victory and progress. So every time someone shares a story, like in the support group or with us on the session, we'll be like, we need to get Balloon Man for you. And that's our little, woo, you're doing
I like
great.
it.
Yeah.
I
So
like it.
that really helps get people out of that beaten to a pulp or like
Yeah.
puddle stage.
Yeah. And imagine that not just goes for like an attorney or the legal part, but a lot of people when they get in this position, just to get it over with, um, will make bad decisions
Oh,
financially.
yeah. Mhm.
And does does that sort of come into part of this? Because, legally you can do this, but you need to know what it means financially if you do this and kind of keep your eye on this, that. Do you work with them on that?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I'm not a financial professional, but one thing that we focus on with our clients is doing something called taking strategic oversight of their cases. And we always say you never should approach settlement from a point of desperation
Yeah.
because it's not going to stop. If you say, I'm going to trade custody, I'm going to take no child support as long as you give me the kids, they can go back in a year and a half or 2 years for a modification and still get the kids, and you're going to have no money. And so you really need to consider it. And then also, to listen to what your attorney suggests, listen to what the financial experts say might be a good deal. But in the end, it's your life and it's your family. So you really need to carefully consider these decisions. What's your best case scenario? I'm sure you've heard of the cost benefit analysis.
Yep.
How much money am I going to spend to get whatever it is I'm going for? And not just money, but what am I sacrificing? Because besides, dollars, it's going to be my peace, my time parenting, work, my energy that's taking me away from doing things that I love. Like I know my own lawyer said we could keep going, but it's going to be another minimum of a year of your life of being in the muck. Do you want to do that? Do you want to take the money that you might not get anyway and invest it into your children's college education, or do you want to pay for mine?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a twisted question. It's important to understand this legal abuse and how it works and how to combat it. But that doesn't mean, or, to me, it feels like don't confuse that with just someone else being aggressive of what they want. They're kind of two different things. And it's easy sometimes for someone to, especially in an emotional state, to just say, well, they're just doing that because of this. But and I imagine people come to you and you say, well, hold it. This person isn't necessarily doing that. I mean, they're not being abusive, but they're also, fighting hard for what they think is right.
Right. Or they're fighting hard just to keep your attention
Yeah, that
because
is
once
true
this
also.
ends, it goes away.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so acknowledging that, but also I think it's really important, especially from a negotiation perspective, is to find out what's important to the other side and to validate that person's feelings. Even if you hate them, they're still a human being and they have needs. And so we often talk about how to handle mediation and to the very first session, keep your mouth shut. Don't go in saying, this is what I want, blah, 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 blah. Like, just try. There's a lot of, psychological techniques you can use to to do active listening, to pay attention, to give them the mic. I mean, people like that want to win. They want people to pay attention to them. So you do it, but it's a strategy. It's not a weakness. It's that you're doing it because you're gathering intel to think, what can I use to make sure they feel like they're getting something?
yeah,
So instead of just like, I need this because of whatever, they don't care about what you need. They care about themselves. So how can we position it so that they feel like they're taking something away from me? So one of our clients happens to be an attorney. Her ex, they have a really young son, and her ex is extremely irresponsible and has these crazy stories. Like one time he didn't show up for court and on time, and when he got there, he told the judge that the reason he was late was because a squirrel ate the wires to his alarm clock. So he's a little out there, and their son had needed some surgery. And in the past, he had forgotten to give him medication on time. And this was something where if their son didn't have like the medication the night before to prepare for the surgery, he could have gone blind. Like it was really, really important that this procedure was followed ahead of time. And she knew that her ex wasn't going to do it. So she's like, how can I disrupt the schedule? Like I really want to be the one to have him the night before. Otherwise, like terrible things could happen. So we got into what would be some ways to make your ex feel like he was getting something from it. So we thought about how her ex was a student at the time and that he had to get up early for class. So they met with a parenting coordinator, and she was like, I know how hard it is for you to get up early, and you've got all this pressure with school, and our kid has surgery the next morning. If you want, I can take him the night before so you can do what you need to do and not have to worry about anything with him. And her ex was like, absolutely, that'd be great. So she's like, yes. And
yeah,
uh and he felt good about it. He didn't feel like he was losing. He felt like this was a benefit to him. So we
yeah,
all celebrated. And her
yeah.
son was fine, luckily.
Well, that just makes such sense because, like we said, it's a whole life almost afterwards, and you know, understanding what the other person kind of wants, and at times, doing it because maybe it's the right way to do it, and just because it reduces some of the conflict. I mean, that's a great. I love that. That's just terrific. Wow. Oh, okay. This is ridiculous. We've already blown through our 30 minutes.
What?
And I definitely, there's so many topics we could talk about, but that will have to be next time.
Sure.
But before we go, I would just like you to tell people if they want to reach out to you, what are the best ways they can do that?
Super easy. So our website is beentheregotout.com. My email is lisa@beentheregotout.com. We're really big on social media. Our Instagram is been there got out with little underscores. Our book is called Been There Got Out. Our new book is also going to be called Been There Got Out. It has a different subtitle because it's about how to handle when your ex turns the kids against you. But just Google Been There Got Out and you will find us. And it's just my partner, Chris, and I. We always answer ourselves. So anytime, reach out.
Okay. I now do want to do another one, but because we didn't really talk. It's an entirely different, I mean, maybe the same reasons, but entirely different stuff. Uh, about turning the kids against each other. I mean, That's just it's so awful and it's so common. So I want to talk about that later. But
I would love to. I've
out-
got lots of stuff.
oh, good. We're out of time. So thank you again for being here to talk about legal abuse and what to do when your ex just harasses you through the entire court process and after. So thank you for coming.
My pleasure, Steve.
Oh my gosh. And everyone else, thank you for joining us today. If there's any further questions on today's topic, you can put them here. We can get you connected with Lisa. You can get to her